He's called over 10 different sports, huge events from the World Series to the Masters, the Olympics, bowl games, all star games, and is the lead hockey announcer for NHL on ESPN and ABC. We're thrilled to get some time with announcer Sean McDonough. Sean, thanks so much for some time.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be with you guys.
I have no idea when you find time between all the things that you're calling there. Jeff and I were fascinated at your start, actually. For years, we did a minor league show in addition to this. And you're somebody who at Syracuse got your start with some minor league games. Talk about your time with the Syracuse Chiefs.
Yeah, it was really probably the most important thing that happened to me, one of the most important things on the career path, because when I was at Syracuse, the student station, WAER, had the rights to broadcast the minor league baseball team in town's games, the Syracuse Chiefs, as you said, who were the AAA team, top farm team for the Toronto Blue Jays. So students who wanted to stay for the summer and do the games, you'd do an audition tape or two the beginning of the year. The beginning of the season, the students who did the games the year before did the games like in April. And then the student management of the station and the team, the general manager of the team, Tex Simone, his son John, picked who they thought were the two or three people who should stay for the summer and do it. So I was very lucky that I won the audition my sophomore year in college and did the game sophomore, summer, junior, after my junior year, and after my senior year. I wouldn't have been able to keep doing it because I wasn't a student anymore. And then the games actually left the student station, went to a commercial station in town, and the team asked me to stay and do the game. So, basically by the time I got out of school, a few months after I got out of school at Syracuse, I had done about 400 minor league games, which, was a huge head start.
Sean, a lot of us can trace back to college the roots of the things that we were most passionate about. There are so many people from Syracuse who ended up in your line of work. What is it about Syracuse that leads to the success of people like you, Mike Tirico, and so many others?
Well, I think there's a lot to that, Jeff, and it's funny because I had lunch yesterday with Dick Stockton, who's out here in Arizona, and for a lot of us, Marv Albert and Dick Stockton and Bob Costas were the reason we went there. And they went there. Marv went there because he idolized Marty Glickman, the legendary announcer for the New York Knicks and the New York Giants back when Marv was a kid. And Marv got to know Marty when he was a kid. So he went to Syracuse because Marty went there, even though we really didn't have a broadcasting program. It's just that's where Marty went, so that's where I'm going to go. So, as the guys started coming there, and women now, a lot more women, thankfully, now, because they want to do this. They want to be like Marv Albert, as I did, or Dick Stockton, or Bob Costas. And, they kind of almost built the program once they realized, wow, a lot of people are coming here to do this, and we really don't have that much of a program for them. Obviously, there was a communications program. So, now there are very specific programs up there. There's the Newhouse Sports Media Center in the Newhouse Communications School, and a lot of that is very specifically about sports broadcasting. So, it's really become the place to be now, and it was then. It's the curriculum up there is great, but I think a lot of it, and I'm sure you guys would agree with this, 90 whatever percent of what Marv Albert needed, or Bob Costas needed, or Mike Tirico needed to be those guys, they were born with. I go up there and I see, talk to these kids now, and they're so smart and they're so talented. They're broadcasting games and they've had very little training at it. So, a lot of this, I think, is natural talent, and it's instinctive that, it can be tweaked. But the biggest benefit, I think, of going to school there now with the great curriculum that has been built is also you get the opportunity to do things like I did in minor league baseball and stuff like that.
You talk about being instinctive. One of the experiences you did not get at Syracuse was learning to call bobsledding and luge. I love the fact that you prepared for the Olympics by going down a trial run yourself. Can you talk about what it was like and the lesson you learned about learning and preparation and really immersing yourself in the sport to be able to call it?
Yeah, well, when I was at CBS, this a long time ago now, the first Olympics I did was in '92 in Albertville, France. And originally I was going to do short track speed skating, and I think it was Merlin Olsen retired or left. and he was going to do bobs and luge. So sort of at the last minute, they said, "Oh, never mind, you're going to do bobsled and luge, and it's a promotion, which it's going to get more airtime, at least theoretically." So I
As long as you
about
as long as you live through it.
yeah, well, that's the thing. To Jason's question about, so I went to Lake Placid, which is where the the U.S. teams train in bobsledding and luge. We were going to televise as part of, I think it was the old CBS Sports Spectacular, whatever, the trials. Like a month or two before the Olympics, they're going to have this competition and pick the team based on the U.S. trials. So spent a lot of time with the people who run the sport, coaches, PR people, walking up and down the bobsled and luge runs and having them explain to me, what makes a good luger? How do you luge? What are the important things? Same thing with the bobsled. So we were doing this walk and they said, "You want to try the luge?" So I sure, why not? So it was really stupid, to be quite honest. And
You go head first or feet first?
no, I went feet first. Yeah, head first that's a different form of luge, which I don't believe was in the Olympics when I did it. I don't know if it is now too. I think that's skeleton, right? But
Yeah, skeleton.
but anyway, the part of what made me do it was there were little kids there doing it. There were like 10-year-old kids that are their little helmets and look, they're doing it. So, but they were also starting from 2/3 of the way down this icy slope. So the basic things they told me, and I'll try to make this brief, which I've already demonstrated I'm not good at, but they said you want to lie flat on your back, because if you lean forward, and your weight comes off the back of the sled, it's like a car that doesn't have enough weight when it's on ice or snow, and the back of the sled will start to fishtail. And it really was like a toboggan. You're lying on your back, so the runners are between your feet. Your feet are outside the two runners, and if you wanted to turn to the left, you'd push in with your right foot, and it turns. The runner's like, okay, that's pretty simple. And you need to steer into the turn. Like, here comes a turn to the left, so you need to push in with your right to make the thing go to the left. But what they don't tell you when you're lying flat on your back is you don't see the turns coming. And then you kind of go straight up into the turn and almost crash. And then your knee pad goes under your knee. And every time you hit another wall, your kneecap's hitting the wall. And that wasn't fun after a while. So I started cheating, right? Oh, I have to sit forward because I have to see this turn coming so I can steer into it. But then you start doing the fishtail and you're really not controlling the thing. What they left out was these losers memorize the course. So they know, here comes the left-hand turn. Well, I didn't know. I had been walking up and down this thing for about an hour. So yeah, there were a lot of crashing into walls, a lot of pondering what would be the best way to get off this thing. Could I make myself maybe intentionally crash? And then I remember having the thought, I had just signed to do the World Series for CBS, and I was going to be the youngest person who ever done the World Series on national TV. And I'm thinking, my obituary is going to be, he never made it to the World Series. So, but I did learn. I learned a lot about, and I had a great appreciation for the courage it takes to do it, the speed at which they go, because I was going a lot slower than these world-class competitors, but it was also terrifyingly fast.
You're in a much warmer place than we are right now, but let's start with winter sports, because that's one of the things we wanted to have you on to talk about, which is hockey. You started by calling beanpot games. Can you tell us what that was like? Those rivalries to the outside world, if you're not a college hockey fan, you don't really understand the depth of intensity there is to those games. What was it like to you?
The word I was going to use too, Jeff, is the intensity of it. For those who don't know, it's the Beanpot is the first 2 Monday nights in February. It's the 4 Division I Boston college hockey schools, Harvard, BU, BC, and Northeastern, and they play a tournament. There's 2 games on the first Monday night. The 2 teams that win playing the championship game the following Monday night, and the 2 teams that lose playing the consolation game. So yeah, it was awesome. And back in the early days when I started doing it, I think almost the entire time that I did it was in the old Boston Garden. So, it was even more intense because of just the proximity of everybody to the ice. And one of the few good things about the old Garden was it had one aisle that went all the way around, kind of at the top of the loges and before the I think they called them stadium seats. So it was great, at an event like that where it's very social, right? You got all the alums of all the schools, and they're going to look for their buddies and say hi to their friends who went to one of these other schools. So it's just a great athletic and social event, and kind of in the city of Boston, if you went to those 4 schools, it was almost a must attend, but a lot of fun, so intense. And, doing that and doing Hockey East games for Nesson and Channel 38 in Boston for a long time, you do hundreds of games. It's a great way to learn how to be a hockey announcer.
You're somebody who grew up in the 60s in Boston as a Bobby Orr fan, as a Bruins fan. Now you're the lead NHL announcer. You got to call your first game 7 this past year, the Bruins against the Maple Leafs. I tell Jeff all the time, game 7 in hockey is like my favorite thing. I think there's nothing like it. The handshakes at the end. Talk about what that was like to call that type of game and that type of rivalry.
Yeah, it was really cool. And, because for a lot of reasons, that it was the Bruins. I'm not going to lie about that. Growing up as a Bruins fan, dreaming about doing playoff games that would involve the Bruins. And I didn't even know that was my first game 7. So your research is better than my remembering my own life experiences.
You've done others for other sports, but
but I didn't know that was the first one in hockey. But now, now that I think about it, I'm not gonna. I'm sure you've checked it out, and you're right. So, and we were very lucky later in these same playoffs that in the most recent playoffs to have a game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. But yeah, that was incredible because there were so many. Any game 7 has its own, to borrow Jeff's word again, intensity, and it's the ultimate, right? If you win and you go on, and you lose and your season's over. So with these 2 teams, I mean, it was Toronto, the team that just can't win in the playoffs, and in particular in the last 2 decades when they've really struggled to win a series, it's a lot of times it's been the Bruins, and sometimes it's been heartbreaking losses to the Bruins. So, and then in the case of the Bruins, they had the historic exit the year before where they set the league record for the most wins and the most points in any regular season in the history of the league, and then they lost in the first round in a game 7 to the Florida Panthers. So, and here we go again. Now they had the lead in the series. All of a sudden they're in a game 7. It's in overtime. And so, I mean, and that made it even that much better, right? I mean, not only it's game 7, but now it's overtime, which to me is like the ultimate pressure. So, and I had said I've been on a pregame show. The ABC affiliate did a pregame show before the game aired, and Duke Castiglione is one of the sports anchors on Channel 5 in Boston. His dad, Joe Castiglione, is a legendary baseball broadcaster I worked with. Joe just retired after a Hall of Fame career. And he asked me, what do you think is going to happen? I said, well, I think the Bruins are going to win it on a late goal by David Pastrnak, which actually, it's just kind of a lucky guess, but he wound up scoring the goal in overtime. And then, the fun part about this business is the spontaneity of it, right? You only get to do it once. So either you nail the call or you don't. And I was very thankful that the response to it was really positive, that it was a big moment, and that Ray Ferraro and I and our crew hope, most people have thought we captured it pretty well.
When there's a player on the ice in a game 7, that there's that additional pressure, or you assume there is. For somebody in your position, that you're calling a game 7. Is there an additional pressure? Does it get into your head ever? And you sit there and go, there's going to be this moment. I have to be prepared for this moment. Or is it that it just flows at this point?
Yeah, I don't consciously remember Jeff feeling that way. Like, oh my gosh, this is overtime, and now, you better be on it, or don't blow it, or whatever. I just think you're so caught up in what's happening, making sure you're on top of all these storylines, right? Because, the game's the game. In hockey, something had happened so fast. It's one of the things I learned when we got back in the NHL 4 years ago is how much faster the game was than when ESPN had last been in the NHL, I think 17 years before. So, back in the old days, guys carrying the puck up the ice, and you could look down at your notes, or if you couldn't remember his number, you could, look down and, oh yeah, he's number 18 is John Smith. You can't do that anymore because it just goes too fast. If you look down for 1 second, there's a penalty, there's a big check, there might be a goal while you look away. So, so calling the play is the most important thing, because at any moment, any of those things could happen, right? A huge save that keeps the game going, a penalty that puts a team on a huge power play, the game-winning goal. So you can't get too much in the middle of, and no team has ever done this 2 years in a row, like the Bruins were about to do. And there was a lot of speculation about, well, if they lose, Jim Montgomery is going to be fired, even though he had like the second best first 2 years of the regular season of any team in NHL history. So, you got to kind of, those are more the things I think I was thinking about, honestly, like, okay. And then overtime didn't go along for very long. So we really didn't have to do that for very long because, Pasternak's goal came pretty quickly.
All right. Well, I'm going to segue you to something because you're partially responsible for my co-host crying at one point.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. Jason, I'll let you take it from here.
I guess you're either a Michigan grad.
Nope, that's Jack.
No, I'm a Michigan grad, but
nope, not a Pirates fan.
I'm trying to think what other calamities.
For Joe Carter.
Joe Carter or Phillies. Well, I should have known, right? You guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. My dad fell asleep, and I woke him up because we had tickets to Game 7 if the Phillies came back here. And I said, Dad, they've got one more out. We're coming back. And he wakes up. He watches Mitch Williams throw the pitch. Joe Carter hits the home run. My dad says, welcome to being a Philadelphia sports fan, and went back to bed. So your call lives in my brain as a scarring moment of my Philadelphia.
Yeah, don't kill the messenger. That's always my message to people who have been on the wrong side of things that I've called is don't kill the messenger. We have nothing to, people who believe in the announcer jinx. I really wish that was true because I would have the betting app and I would be the wealthiest man I would be wealthier than Elon Musk, who I just read today is now worth $400 billion. Yeah, if we could actually control things. But I had a guy in Pittsburgh. I was speaking in Pittsburgh, and it wasn't long after the Sid Bream Game 7 that the Pirates blew. They were up 2-0 in the bottom of the ninth of Game 7 and lost the Atlanta Braves. Francisco Cabrera got the hit, and Sid Bream scored the run by that much. And a guy came up to me at this event in Pittsburgh, an older gentleman, and he said, "You were a part of the worst moment of my life." And I said, well, if losing a baseball game is the worst moment of your life, you had a hell of a life. Like,
you did.
Sign up for your life.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't say you ruined my life, but you did my sports fan.
I cost you Game 7, though.
I
would have been happy with Game 7. The Joe Carter thing, people always ask me a lot, where this call or that call, or which moments were the most, impactful, the ones you remember the most. And, that was huge, but it would have been bigger, obviously, if it was Game 7, because even if they had lost, Toronto had lost, they still had a Game 7.
It's Game 7.
But it was only the second time the World Series had ever ended on a home run.
I know.
Right? I remember Mazeroski was the other one. That's when you're lucky, because at the time, not too long ago, it might still be true, I don't know. The Major League World Series had only ended on a home run twice. And the College World Series, I did the only one at the time. Warren Morris, who later played for the Pittsburgh Pirates, for LSU, hit a home run bottom of the ninth against Miami, walk-off home run. And the shot that sticks with me forever is he was running around the bases and jumping up and down. The place was going crazy. And we were laying out, which every broadcaster should do in a moment like that, was Alex Cora, was the shortstop for the University of Miami, who was literally spread-eagled face down in the dirt. When he became the manager of the Red Sox, he said to me, "You're the guy." I said, "Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Yep, I called that. But again, don't blame the messenger."
I wanted to ask you about that. Laying out. How do you know when to let the moment breathe and when to add your words and commentary to it so that we as the audience can get the full feeling of what's going on?
Yeah, I think we just had this the other night as we were speaking. Our group, college football group, did Clemson and SMU, and the ending was spectacular. And, SMU scored a touchdown. I think it was with 16 seconds to go, kicked the extra point, looked like overtime. And then Clemson got a big kickoff return, one pass, again, field goal range, kick a 56-yard field goal at the buzzer. So, you say it, and I think what I said, it's good. And then Clemson wins the ACC, whatever, and then stop, right? Describe it. Put it as briefly as you can into its significance, and then stop talking, especially in this day and age where the audio and the video are so great, the sounds and the pictures. And there's nothing that we can say that's going to be as good as that. Now, I think the exception is, I always continue to watch the monitor. And if something happens on the screen during the celebration that needs, who is that? Oh, that's the owner of the team, who maybe people don't know, then I think there are times you need to jump back in. But if it's just players jumping on top of each other and the coaches shaking hands and the crowd going crazy, to me, it's almost egotistical to keep talking, because all it really means is you want yourself to be a part of this when you really shouldn't be, right? You want your voice to be on this when they play it back, when you really shouldn't be.
Sean, we often have people on the show to talk about how they use the platform that they have to better society and what the history is of why they have that passion. You have that passion, obviously, because of your father. Can you talk to us a little bit about the golf tournament and the reason that you do that?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. It's, yeah, my dad was a great sports writer, obviously legendary sports writer, particularly in Boston. And he's also known nationally for being the first information man. He was the first newspaper writer who went on TV. He was the original Adam Schefter or Woj or Peter King or all those guys. It's become an industry. Right when my dad died, Peter King was at my dad's funeral, and when I was walking out, he said, "Well, I got hired to be on TV. The first person I called was your dad to say thank you, because if he didn't do this and do it well, this probably wouldn't even be a thing." So, really proud of everything that my dad accomplished in his professional career. But, the reason that we had his wake in the Boston Garden, the TD Garden, when he died, because the Bruins ownership, which owned the building, called us and said, "We think this is going to be the only place in the city big enough to have this." And, we were fortunate that the teams were out of town at the time. But it was really because of the kind of person he was. He was very philanthropic, never said no to a great cause. And so, I think the best way to honor that part of him is to mirror what he did. So we've had a charity golf tournament, celebrity golf tournament now for several years, 20 years really. But for the last 8 or 9 years, I guess it is now, I always lose track. We have it to raise money for cardiac amyloidosis research, which is the rare heart disease that killed my dad, which we didn't know that even had until they did an autopsy, because his doctors were very perplexed about why he died at 67. So the foremost research in the world for cardiac amyloidosis is being done in Boston at Brigham Women's Hospital. And so there's that connection too. So we have a celebrity golf tournament. A lot of really nice celebrities come. Charles Barkley comes every year, and Bill Murray's been several times. And this year we had Joe Buck and Donnie Wahlberg and Ray Bork, and it's just kind of a who's who of celebrities. And we've raised a lot of money this past year. With just a party the night before and the golf tournament the next day. This past year we raised $757,000, and it's really a significant amount of money for these research teams, because part of the problem is when the government thinks, not enough people have this, it stinks that people are dying from it, but we can't really give a lot of money to it, because there's more people that have this disease or that syndrome or whatever, and I get it, but so it's really meaningful. And then you meet the patients whose lives have been saved or extended, who you thought when you saw them at the event a year or two ago, they probably weren't going to make it to the next year. And now they're there, and I'm going to be emotional, but they're healthier, and they come over and thank you. We had one young man come up to me after the event a year and a half ago and said, "My mom is still alive because of your golf tournament." So a lot more important than ball one and strike one, and that's a power play goal and that sort of thing. We had a gentleman speak a couple of years ago at the event, and Sean Riley, and he was in really rough shape. Remember, Michael Ruzioni and I at the event the night before had to help him up on the stage. And and he gave a wonderful speech. He was in Dubai. He was told the foremost people in the world who have what he likely has are in Boston. You need to go to Boston, see Dr. Rodney Falk. So he spoke, and I thought, oh, this poor guy, it's too late. And then 2 years later, I was asking Dr. Falk about, do we have a good speaker for this year? Because I always want people to hear from people who benefited from the research and are getting treated. And he said, yeah, there's this gentleman. And he said, and Sean Riley's doing really well. I thought, in my mind, Sean Riley's still alive? He said, yeah, he's doing great. So he came, he looked much better. I mean, nobody had to help him up on the stage. And he walked up there and he talked about how much better he's been doing these last 2 years, and he didn't think he'd still be alive. And he said, and thanks to you people, since I was here 2 years ago, I met the love of my life and we're getting married. So
That's amazing.
it's important.
The opportunities that you provide people, and we talk about using the platform and what it means to you, but what's it mean to you to see the goodness of the people who help, who give for no other reason than they see it's the right thing to do, or they believe in you, or they believed in your dad, or they believe in the cause?
Yeah, and it's all of that, in all honesty, Jason. It's some of them are just my friends who know it's important to me, and it's, and they want to help. And then other people have a connection to the cause. And then, these celebrities get pulled everywhere. And you know, I asked Charles, would you just come once, and then he came, and he gets invited to all of these, and he does very few of them, but he understands the importance of the cause. He likes the people involved. He's an amazing guy. I mean, he comes back to Boston Golf Club every year, and he remembers the names of the bag drop people and the guys in the pro shop and the waitresses in the dining room. And he meets he meets more people than anybody I know. So and you're just so grateful to them for doing it. And but I think when they get there, it's a lot of fun. It's Jay Billis one time, who doesn't like anything or anyone, said, I'm kidding, said this is the best combination of classy but fun, and it's a great golf course. The hotel's awesome, the Boston Harbor Hotel. It's a first class event, but I think people realize that, when they see the doctors talk, hear the doctors talk, see the patients whose lives are being saved, see their families who have more time. I would kill for one more day with my dad, 5 more minutes with my dad. And to know that we're helping these people spend more time with their loved ones is awesome, I think, to all of us. So it's a group effort, and it's fun. It's a tremendous amount of work. It's amazing how many pieces go into these things. And my sister Erin really does it with me, and we're not good delegators. Because everything has to be just so, but it's a labor of love, and we're going to keep doing it till they find a cure. And I think they will, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
What's it like to know that a lot of these people are doing this because of their love and their respect for your dad?
Yeah, it's really emotional. Those are the two things I think that are most emotional. When people, we started this tournament before, when my dad was still alive. We started a tournament. I wanted to do something. Billy Andrade and Brad Faxon, who are the two great professional golfers from Rhode Island, they started a foundation in Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. I used to go play in their golf tournament, and they would raise a lot of money, and then they'd give out money to children's charities in southeastern Mass and Rhode Island. And they had a little board. Organizations would apply to them for a grant. They'd go through it. What are you going to do with the money? Okay, we're inclined to give you the money, but you already have $5 million in the bank. This place on the corner that's trying to help kids get out of addiction or whatever, they have $20,000 in the bank. They would identify what they thought were the most important causes. So we, with their considerable help, mirrored that for several years, and we wound up giving out about $3 million to 129 children's charities around Massachusetts. Early in that, my dad died, so I think the first or second year. So we dedicated everything to that after, in memory of my dad, and to carry on his legacy of charity. And so about the 5th or 6th year, we took a celebrity picture with the celebrities who'd been to all 6, I think it was at that time. And it was Dick McPherson, the old football coach at Syracuse I worked for, was like a second dad to me. Coached the Patriots after that. Eric Crouch, who won the Heisman Trophy, who was a friend. Billy Packer, the late great Billy Packer, who was the first one to send back the "Yes, I'm coming" every year from Charlotte. Myself, obviously, and Bob Cousy. So we have the golf. We finished one year, and my sister grabs me. She said, "We have a problem with Bob Cousy." It's like at the little cocktail and the awards thing after. And I thought, oh God, did something bad happen? Did he get hit by a golf ball or something? She said, well, he was very emotional. He doesn't think he can come anymore. and he loves coming to this event because he loves Dad. He loved Dad. And I said, well, what's the matter? And she said, well, his wife, Missy, at the time, had been battling Alzheimer's for a while. He said, and it's gotten to the point where he can't leave her at home, So I thought, okay, I totally understand. I said, what happened today? What did he do today? She said, he flew his daughter up from Florida for the day because it was important for him to be here and to continue to honor Dad. So, guys who played when Bob Cousy played aren't awash in cash. So, to fly his daughter up for the day to sit with his wife and her mother so that he could come to the golf tournament because it was important to honor my dad. It says a lot about Bob. It says a lot about how people felt about my dad. But, it also says a lot about athletes from that era, right? Because I'm not sure a lot of today's athletes would have the same kind of heart about that sort of thing.
Sean, just from this interview, you mentioned so many people that, are jaw-dropping people in sports. Do you ever sit back and just go, wow, look at the journey that I've been on. Look at the people that I've met. You work with people like Mark Messier and you talk about Bob Cousy and all the people that you work. Do you ever just sit back and go, wow, look at the people I get to spend time with?
It's the best part of the whole thing. It really is, right? Life would be pretty dull and not very fulfilling if we were here by ourselves, right? And I think any experience you have in life, whether it's personal, professional, whatever it is, it's really ultimately about the people you share it with. And I think about that every day. I wake up every day and thank God for the life that I have and have had. And, it hasn't all been happy or, there's been a lot of heartache along the way, like everybody's life. But, when I look back and add it all up and I don't have to look back, I'm just today think about, as we're talking in a week, I'm going to go do the first college football playoff game on a college campus, and it's going to be at Notre Dame. And, as someone who was raised by a nun who was a sister of Notre Dame, who loved Notre Dame, it would be cool anyway, given all the history. But, and to your point, Jeff, the thing I love most about doing college football every week is I love the people I do it with. Greg McElroy is a great guy. Molly McGrath is like my sister. Scott Johnson, our director, Phil Dean, our producer, our camera crew. It's a family atmosphere, which doesn't always happen in our business. So, when I worked with Billis and Raftery for all those years, doing college basketball, we did a lot of big games, a lot of big Mondays in the good old Big East. But the best part was I was going to go do it with two of my best friends and have a lot of laughs before, during, and after. So that's what life's all about. And, again, to your point, Jeff, I was sitting here telling these stories and talking about these people, to know how blessed I am and have been and will continue to be, to have people like that as my friends. And not because they're celebrities. I have a lot of friends who aren't celebrities who are wonderful people too. But, to know that there are people in that stature of life who are celebrities and are revered by people for their athletic achievements or their, work in movies or TV, and to know what good people they are. And I really am blessed.
Well, it's a good thing you're calling the Notre Dame game because I sent Jeff the get-in price is kind of crazy for it. But
yeah, I've had some friends ask me, can you help me with tickets? I said no, and chances are you're not going to want to go once you see how much it's going to cost you to get tickets.
Not at all.
Last I saw, the cheapest tickets were $1,200, and that was a few days ago. So it's probably even more than that now.
Yeah, that was the Jeff always enjoys those text messages for me where I send him pricing of what it is. Sean, how can people give if they want to support the organization so that we can share it too?
Oh, wow. If you Google, there's a bunch of ways, and off the top of my head, I always forget the more direct route. But if you Google Sean McDonough Classic.org, it'll take you to the link. Or if you went to Brigham and Women's Hospital's giving page and searched, there is a link specifically to the Sean McDonough Celebrity Golf Classic Fund, which goes directly to Dr. Falk and his research team. And that's
Oh,
the thing that I love about, I was a little worried, when we partnered with the hospital. One of the things I love about our event, it's one of the things I love about the V Foundation is, 100% of the money goes. When the hospital approached, we said, well, we can help you with all the logistical things that you and Aaron don't necessarily have the time for. And I said, well, I don't like that guy. I don't want it. I like being able to tell people, hey, no one gets paid. This is an all volunteer army. And they said, well, everybody on the events team at the hospital, those positions are endowed. So we're not taking money out of any event to pay us. We're already paid if we don't do any events. And the V Foundation is the same way. So, I can tell people if they do go to any of those links and find it, 100% of it goes right to this research fund. And
well,
it's amazing. It used to be, you got it. It was very hard to diagnose. It was very hard to treat. And like my dad, you died unless you got a heart transplant. And my dad didn't get a heart transplant in part because they didn't know he had it until after he died. And they did the autopsy. So now there are much better diagnostics. There are much better treatments, but still, really the only way to cure it is to get a heart transplant. Matt Millen, who you guys are well aware of, he had the same disease my dad died. He had cardiac amyloidosis. He very nearly died from it. He was in the hospital for a long time. I think it was 80 plus days waiting for a heart. And it had to be a certain, Matt's a big guy, so it had to be a particularly, I don't know the details of that part, but they're making a lot of progress. So, and they're, at the very least, they're extending people's lives, and the quality of life during that extension is much better than it used to be. So we're making progress, but we want the cure, and it's going to happen.
well, we'll make sure to share it on our social platforms and keep talking about it. And we
Appreciate it.
thank you
Yeah,
enough.
it's an important cause. All these causes are important. Charles says that every year. Charles always says, I come here every year to support this help this disease I can't even pronounce. And I'm sure you can hear Charles saying that,
Terrible.
it is a mouthful. I usually call it CA, but it's yeah, it's really important. And I really appreciate you guys giving me a chance to talk about it.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk about it, using your platform the way you do. And we can't wait
Well,
to.
you made me cry. I didn't anticipate when I came on here with you two nice guys that I was going to get a little weepy, but
I'll
Well, I
just.
guess this is Jason's revenge for you, for you calling a game that made him cry.
hey, I like to cry. I couldn't fall asleep the other night. It's V week as we're talking. So I turned the TV on, and they have the 30 for 30 about Jim Valvano and the great run that 83 Wolfpack team made. And then after that, they went to a thing about another documentary about the speech and everything that it took to get Jimmy there on that night. I'm sure you guys have seen it. But the old thing about, every day you should laugh, you should cry, you should think. I cry a lot, and I'm glad I do.
We're glad we can help give you a full day. We really appreciate it.
It's been a very full day. We've done all of those things in the relatively limited time that we've been together.
Thanks so much for the time, Sean. You have a great one.
My pleasure. Let's do it again. This was fun.
We would love.